Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be working with our data. So we're taking our data from Google Forms. As you can see here on my screen, we've got all of our students' responses, and we're going to narrow it down into something that looks a little bit different. It's going to look like this. It's actually the same results, but now each of the students' answers are represented by ones and zeros. One being that the student got it correct, and 0 being that they got it wrong. So the purpose behind that is we're going to take that and then we're going to make it into another kind of spreadsheet that looks very similar, but we're going to color code it, and we're going to run some formulas that look like this that tell us about a student's average understanding of that concept based off of our quiz in Google Forms. So you might notice that we can see some students have some low scores. We might notice also that some students like Eric here has a high score. So we're going to be able to look at a student's understanding in different concepts from our Google form. And we're going to take these numbers, these averages, and we're going to put that into an individualized report for each student that looks kind of like this. So if you go to the folder that I've shared with you called exemplars, you can go to exemplar sample output. And you can open up any of the files in there, and you can see kind of where we're going. So you'll notice that in the letter that I have here, let me just zoom in a little bit, I have the student's individual name. I also have each of the concepts broken down, and I have highlighted in yellow how the child did on each of those different concepts. Then I might be able to write here some sort of feedback if they got above 75%. And if they got below 75%. So this is just kind of like a placeholder with these dots. But the idea is that this is a report that we give to the student. We could print it and put it on paper, or we could also just share a Google Doc, or we could send this in an email. So that's kind of where we're heading now. Now let's take a look back over at this data sheet that I showed you at the beginning. So I'm going to close the exemplar. This is just the finished version of what I'd like you to be able to do. And we're going to go back to Google Drive. And I'd like you to navigate to the resources folder. So you can get the resources folder from our HyperDoc by going to the Appendix A that says Appendix A Resources. Okay, so we have these two files within this folder. And I put the word copy at the beginning to just remind you to make a copy for yourself. So what I'd like you to do is copy sample data first by saying make a copy. It's all right if you copy it to my Google Drive folder. If you do, please just rename it with your name on it. So let's replace the words copy of copy with your name. So let's pretend like my name is Max. So I might write Max sample data. And please also move that to your Google Drive to just make sure that you have access to it at all times. Okay, so I'm going to open up Max sample data, pretending like that's your name. And you can see that I just have one tab. So I'm going to talk you through how to make those other tabs of data to kind of get it prepared to work with it to make this general, to make the specific report for each student, excuse me. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have an answer key. I've done this for you, but in case you're working with your own data, please just take the quiz yourself and make sure that you have all the correct answers. For the person's name, I like to write answer key so it's easy for me to spot. Okay, so once you've done that, and we've got our spreadsheet here, we're gonna go to add-ons, and we're gonna click on get add-ons. So when it loads up, Flubaroo is one of the most popular ones that you can find. You'll see a little blue button that says, I think, free. Yeah, ones you don't have installed say free with a little plus. So go ahead and click that and add it into your account on your spreadsheet. So once you've done that with Flubaroo, let's click Enable Flubaroo for this sheet. And again, if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video at any time so that you can catch up with me, or even to rewind the video. Okay, so I'm going to click on Enable, and sometimes this takes a second, so just be patient while that works. Cool. The Internet is fast for me today. Okay, so let's go to Flubaroo again, and now we're going to click on Grade Assignment. Okay, so now we need to tell it what each of the columns mean in our spreadsheet. So it's usually pretty good at guessing, but now we have to train it and also double check its work. So score, the column called score, should not be graded. Let's click on skip grading. Full name, that's going to identify the student. Which grade are you in? That identifies the student, that's good. And it's also grayed out, so it's going to skip grading. Which grade are you in? Identify student. Okay, now we have concept 1, question 1, concept 1, question 2, concept 1, question 3, and so on. All of those are normal grading with 1 point for each. Great, let's click continue. And now we're going to have to tell it where to look up the correct answers. Because we already took it with answer key, it's my last one, the little red one down here in the background. So I'll just go down to the end of the list. There's my email address and answer key. Okay, let's click on continue. Now it's going to grade the assignment, and we're going to just be patient for a moment. And you might notice it's making an extra spreadsheet in my overall workbook down at the bottom. And you might also notice that it's freezing some of the panels here. Let's close the announcement that it's finished. Okay, so it's freezing some of these panels here, and it's got a lot of extra formulas and things going on. So what I'd like you to do is simply click on the row 8, and let's drag down to the end. So for me, it's 8 to 15, and let's copy those. Let's make a new tab by clicking the little button down here at the bottom, and simply clicking on paste. Okay, great. And I'd like to just also make things a little bit clearer. They have a few extra columns here. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Let's go from F to J, and let's just delete those. Let's just make things a little bit more simple. Where is my delete button? There it is. Delete columns F to J. Okay, so I have is their full name, what grade are you in, total points that they received, the percentage that they received, and then their score on each of the different concepts. So Flubaroo kind of gave me a little bit too much information, and since this is probably your first time working with mail merge, creating these reports, I like to just simplify everything and just focus on one thing at a time. Okay. Now we've got a bunch of colors. We can see that things are orange. That shows us that those were problem questions for students. This is a great feature that you can play with another time, but I'd like you to also just click on this top left-hand button, select everything, and let's make everything white for right now. So we need to use some colors to group our concepts, and that was confusing. So we can see concept 1, 2, 1 here, 2 here, and 3 down here. Let's go to concept 1. Let's select all of concept 1's questions, and let's make them yellow. Let's select all of concept 2, and let's make them, how about blue? And let's try concept 3, and let's make them all about green. Okay. I like those top row of colors because they're very light when you have black text, so it's really easy to read everything. So you can choose some colors that you like. Okay, so now we have concept 1 grouped out. Let's insert one column on the right, and let's type average percentage 1. Okay, let's do the same for N. Insert on the right, average percentage, but 2, since this is concept 2 that we're testing. We want to get some feedback on. Let's do the same over here. Average percentage 3. Pretty easy, right? So now, just like we calculate an average, we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. So let's make a formula. We're going to say equals sum of this row divided by 4 points possible. Okay. Now let's just drag that down. And we can see that we have the percentage represented as a decimal. So let's just convert that over into a percentage here. I notice that I have 2 decimal places, so let's just remove those, make it a little bit easier to understand. All right, let's do the same thing over here. Equals sum of the student's response divided by the number possible. Again, drag down, change to a percentage. Let's remove 2 decimal places. Okay, great. Let's do the next one. Equals sum, getting a little faster now, divided by 4 points possible, and just drag it down, convert to a percentage, and remove 2 decimal points. So if that was a little bit fast for you, feel free to pause me right now, and you can rewatch that, or if you are good, let's continue on. Okay, let's do some quick analysis of what we noticed here. I have some words highlighted in red from Flubaroo. I'm just going to convert those to black so that I can now apply some colors based on my analysis. Okay, what is your full name? How about we move that to the front of our spreadsheet by clicking on B and just dragging and dropping it. We can easily reorder things when we get that white Mickey Mouse glove. I just click and drag. So let's put what is your full name at the front. And let's go to View, Freeze, 1 column. Now we get that gray line. So when I pan over to the right here, I can see the student's name next to their average percentage for concept 1. Susan, I'm noticing that Susan had 25%. That is below my threshold. So usually I'm looking around 75%. If the student has below that or at 75%, I would probably like to talk to them. So I'm going to talk to these 3 kids, see if I can build some intervention strategies to help them. Okay, let's go over to concept 2. So we can see we have a couple, and I'm just using the command button on my Mac, or you can use the control button to select different cells in a group and quickly apply a color to them. Let's look over here. So we've got a couple students there below the threshold. Okay. So just by looking at this really quickly, I'm noticing that Susan has 2 areas that she's going to need improvement. So I'm just going to make her name red to just stand out to me. I'm noticing also that Andy has 2. He's probably going to need some intervention. Henry has 3, so I'm going to actually use another color. Let's fill his with pink. So that just stands out to me, telling me a few kids that I'm really going to need to focus on. These 3 kids might need some small group instruction. And Henry is probably going to need more one-on-one time with me as well. I can see that there are some other students that are strong, like Eric got 100%, so he would be a good peer mentor for Susan. I noticed that Max was strong in concept number 2, so he could be a strong mentor for one of the other students, like Andy here. So I might go through and I might pair kids up as well as another strategy. Okay. Another really quick formula while we're here that you might like is we can actually look at kind of our own instruction. So we can look at an entire class and say, how is my group's understanding of the teaching that I've done for each concept? So we could just say equals sum, and let's do the same sort of thing. So how many students do we have here? Well, we could count them one-on-one, but we could also just highlight them. I'm going to move my video over to the other side here. So it'll actually count it for you down in the bottom. When it's something non-numeric, it can kind of figure out what you're asking. So I have 7 students. So let's formula equals sum divided by 7. And we can convert that into a percentage. Let's get rid of 2 decimal points again to make it just a little bit easier. So what this shows me is actually concept 1, question 3 was quite difficult for the students. I might need to re-examine my teaching strategy for that one. Something is not quite getting across. So I like to do that for each of my concepts. I might pull those down and I might do the same sort of examination of my own teaching. Okay, so let's look down at the bottom at our sheets. We have the original student submissions. We have the Flubaroo version that converted it to ones and zeros. And then we have this new one that we made. Why don't we call this one our name? So I'm pretending to be named Max. So we're going to be Max's gradebook. Let's call it something easy for you to remember there. Sheet 2 might be a little deceiving. Okay, well, you know what? The hard work is done. And now we're ready to move on to the next video where we're going to merge this data with a template letter. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having fun. Take care.